All right, colleagues. I'm going to make a start, and I'll start by apologising for starting late. We were in budget meetings, three of us, so that's kind of what's held us up. The academic secretary will be back in a minute. Here at the front as well, and Scott, whom some of you have no doubt met at this stage, and Anne will be here for the Q&A bit as well at the end. So look, I'm going to try and talk you through this. What I do need to say right up from the start is the documentation is almost finalized. The appendix in respect of how we will apply the gender quota is almost finalized. We hope to be sending our final version to SIP2 and IFOT at the latest Monday to ask for any final comments or issues that they would like to raise with us. Those of you who are in SIP2 or IFOT will be aware that they have indicated, the unions have indicated, and I do regret this, that if we run the scheme, they will be in dispute with us. That's not an ideal position to be in, but it'll be for UDRUS to decide, UDRUS and Högskola, to decide at the end of February whether, in fact, to decide on the way forward and to approve the scheme, hopefully. I'm going to give you information as best I can, but I'm only human, so if anything I say and you see it's in the documentation slightly differently, then the documentation is definitive. I will simply do my best here, okay? But I do have to preface it with that, okay? So, let me start off. So, some of this is background, some of this goes into some of the detail of the scheme, and as I say, we will have a Q&A at the end. So, the last senior lecturer promotion scheme was 2013-14. We had 104 applications. In the end, 31 people were promoted, 3 of those on appeal, as you'll be aware, 28 on the basis of recommendations. The proposed 2017 scheme is an evolution of the 13-14 scheme. And just to say in that context, there were a lot of people who felt that we should move to a different scheme, one where basically there's a benchmark and threshold, and if you reach the threshold, you get promoted. We have indicated to the unions, I will say, that we are open to beginning immediate discussions about having that kind of scheme in the future once we get this up and running. But our feeling is that people have been working, thinking this is a scheme for quite a long time now, and to move the goalpost now very suddenly without any lead-in would not be fair. So the proposal is, and UDRUS has signed off on this, that we run this scheme now. But we are open to discussions beginning immediately, in effect, that we open this scheme. To see whether a future scheme might be different. Assessment is by academic peers in a peer review process, and I will go into that later in the slides. The scheme is comparative, so there's a fixed number of places and a rank ordering of candidates, and that's one of the fundamental differences between the last time as well. This time, the number will be laid down right at the start, and the only circumstances in which that will vary, and it can only vary upwards, will be if additional places are needed because the gender quota wasn't met. That's the only circumstances in which there will be a higher number, but the number will be fixed in advance. Last time it wasn't. The various things that have fed into this scheme and how it has evolved have been the recommendations of the Senior Lecturer Promotions Board 2013-14. They gave us feedback on the scheme. Recommendations of the Appeal Board, feedback from successful and unsuccessful candidates. External expert gender impact assessment of 2017 scheme, and we've had external experts from Oxford Brookes University who have input into the development of the scheme. Gender impact assessment of the 2017 scheme by the VP Equality and Diversity and by the Equality Manager. It's been approved by UMT, Academic Council and UDRUS and Högskola. The scheme has been reviewed by legal experts as well, in particular in respect of the gender quota, but in general, and we also had a consultation then with all staff in January. We got feedback there from about 15 different sources, and we're developing FAQs on the back of that as well, and there may be some minor changes there. People did point out some anomalies and inconsistencies in there that we will address. Key enhancements to the 2017 scheme over the 2013-14 scheme. So on this occasion, there's two separate schemes, one for lecturers, which we're now calling Lecturer B, for those who have a new contract since late 2015, and one for Lecturer A, or University Teacher, for those who have opted to retain that designation, okay? So they will be parallel. Last time it was simply different weightings of the points, but actually the ranking all went together. On this occasion, there's going to be specific numbers of places set aside for Lecturer and for Lecturer A, and I'll come to that. Streamlining of the process, we've taken away the interview stage, we've removed the external assessor reports, 2 external advisors have been added to the board as process overseers, and they will maintain oversight of the whole process, including such issues as consistency of marking, etc. Greater external representation on the appeals board, strict word page limits. Again, it was pointed out last time that was quite variable. The application form will be fully online. Information sessions, and this is the first of them, and the recommendations of the board will be ratified by Údarás na Hallscoile. Okay? Well, that was true last time as well. What's meant there?
So the difference is that they're not going back to the individual colleges now before going to Údarás, which they would have done last time.
Yeah. Okay. It just simply goes straight to Údarás. Eligibility for those on contract A, so lecturers above the bar and university teachers grade 2, whether permanent, full-time or part-time, provided they've been confirmed in post. And then contract B, lecturers above the bar, whether permanent, full-time or part-time, provided they've been confirmed in post. The date of eligibility is 31st of December 2016. Okay? The topics that I intend covering in this information session are the criteria, the weightings, the additional material, the information session dates, and we have 3 dates. This is the first. There's also the 14th of February and the 27th of February, and we're also organising one for colleagues in Shannon as well at their request. And then we have a draft timetable which would indicate that applications will open as soon as possible in March, assuming everything clears the final hurdle at the meeting of Údarás on the 28th of February. And we would expect to give people between 6 and 8 weeks then to get their application submitted. Again, that'll be finalised by Údarás. It is competitive. The objective is to promote on the basis of comparative performance. And this is assessed according to criteria which reflect the university's educational mission. Takes into account 3 broad areas. A lot of this will be familiar to you. A lot of this is actually pretty standard across universities. Learning, teaching and assessment, research and scholarly standing, contribution to the school, college, university and community. A minimum of 40% score is required in each of the 3 areas in order to be deemed eligible for promotion, and with higher achievement in at least 2. And realistically, if you look at the scores from the last time around, now who knows what they're going to be this time, but you were getting, anyone who got promoted was getting over 200 and significantly over 200, over 210 in fact in all cases, and there were 2 sub-panels, and that benchmark was slightly different in each of them, but it was certainly 340s, 120 in a competitive environment. You are unlikely to make the grade. That's the bottom line there. However, it would deem you okay. Promotion is based on a fixed number of promotional places or rank ordering of candidates based on assessment of applications. In the learning, teaching and assessment, that's the first of our 3 subsets. Applicants will be assessed under the following 6 areas: teaching experience and responsibilities, teaching skill and approach, curriculum and course design development, student support and facilitation, innovation and leadership, professional development and scholarship. So taking the first of those, teaching experience and responsibilities, evidence in this category should be submitted by outlining contact hours for a 3-year period and submitting a teaching portfolio. Standard template and guidelines for the construction of teaching portfolios are available on the KELT website. And it should include a brief statement of your teaching philosophy. Okay? Teaching skill and approach. High quality of teaching backed up by mandatory evidence from independent student evaluation and supported by peer review, external examiner reports or other techniques. If you're unable to undergo independent student feedback due to documented leave, you can submit other forms of student feedback, and my office should be notified in advance. And the email address for notifying that, is that Joanne or who is that?
It's the SL.
It's the SL promotions at nuigalway.ie. Okay. Curriculum and course design development, experience in the review and revision of existing programs, modules, as well as the design of new modules and programs. Student support and facilitation. Okay. And I mean, you know, you can all read this. I'm not going to try and read this all verbatim, but you can read what's there, the kind of things that are there. Innovation and leadership. Opportunities for development of new programs. Okay. Reviewing existing course offerings to keep them up to date or to be new and innovative with them. Willingness to experiment and innovate. That really is crucial in terms of the kind of profile you'd expect of someone who's going for promotion. Professional development and scholarship. Applicants should show achievement in as many areas as possible, backed up by appropriate evidence. Okay. Now, in terms of the independent student feedback, it is being run by an independent external agency. It's being run in the 2 semesters of this academic year, and we're also working for the future to have this embedded as simply a constant and not done simply as preparation for the SL scheme. You should apply for semester 2 by the 24th of February. Okay, and even if you were done in semester 1, if you had this done in semester 1, you can still have it done in semester 2 as well. Okay. You're asked to submit details of all available modules. The external agency randomly selects 2 to 3 modules per applicant. A random sample of students is selected and they are sent an electronic survey to complete. External agency collates the results and sends them to the applicants for review. Feedback reports will be sent to the SL board by the external agency. You do not need to include them in your application. Okay. You will have the opportunity to comment on the independent student feedback. Okay. And in line, note those things. So in line with best practice and to avoid survey fatigue, on modules that are taught in teams, only 1 lecturer's teaching will be surveyed per module. Okay. You don't have the option of selecting which modules you prefer to have surveyed, so you're supposed to submit all the modules that are possible there, and that's partly because of the whole survey fatigue issue. And if you have concerns about feedback or given or response rates, please address these concerns in your commentary on the teaching portfolio, and the board will take them into consideration. Okay. Applicants who are unable to undergo feedback due to documented leave are required to include the outcomes of feedback processes conducted by themselves or otherwise independently conducted with their teaching portfolio. And again, please advise my office in advance if that's what you intend to do. Okay. Staying with learning, teaching and assessment. So you need a copy of your approved teaching schedule for the last 3 academic years. Actually prior to this year, therefore. In other words, beginning 13-14 and then 14-15 and 15-16. You should set out all of your undergraduate and postgraduate teaching duties, including supervision of minor dissertations and the supervision of major dissertations, such as PhDs and research masters. They would be included in the research section of your application. Okay. Moving on to research then. Your research, so for contract A, those on contract A or university teacher contract, your research and scholarly standing is understood to refer to research and other forms of scholarship associated with research-informed teaching and with keeping up to date with developments in your discipline, as well as research as traditionally conceived in your discipline. Okay? For those on contract B, research as traditionally conceived in your discipline, including publications, PhD supervision, your research and scholarly profile, research funding, and research impact. The intention of this section is to allow you to set out your outputs across a range of research-related activities. Okay? And I'll try and address any question you might have about that distinction later on in the Q&A. So publications. See Appendix 2 of the scheme for details of the types of publications to be included, and 1 or 2 questions did come up there. For example, there was something about article in a book versus book chapter. What's the difference? I think for most of us, I mean, unless somebody tells me differently, I don't see the difference, so we may tweak that slightly just to be clear about it. We're also clarifying what is meant by editorial activity as well as a result of the feedback. This will be in the FAQs, and it'll be, so those will be slight amendments based on the feedback that we got in the consultation. to the final version of the form. Applicants to the Contract B scheme are asked to list their publications by category. So that's what I've just been saying. Applicants Contract A scheme are asked to list all publications, but not by category. Please note the form includes only a list of your publications. Applications must include the IRIS. Applicants must include their IRIS profile to provide full details of publication. Okay? We won't be taking alternative lists. And the one thing I would say to you, as someone who, for at least 8 or 9 years before I came to this institution, was involved in promotions processes and not least SL processes, if you've got an article that has page numbers, put the page numbers on it. Don't be sending it in, it's an article in such and such a journal, and leaving the panel to guess whether it's 3 pages or 30. Okay? Put the pagination in. I recognize that some online articles don't have pagination, but if there's pagination, put it in. I've sat in too many boards where people sat frustrated not knowing how to weigh up or measure something on that basis, and you rarely get the benefit of the doubt. Okay? It's your own fault. It's a bog standard thing in research. Put the pagination in. Now, when I say, and they rarely get the benefit of the doubt, that's based on my experience of assessing in another institution before I came here. Okay? I don't know what the response will be here on the board, but I'm giving you a personal comment there. Okay? Postgraduate research students, research funding obtained by your research and scholarly standing profile, contributions to postgraduate research, research impact, research resources, and other professional circumstances. Okay? So, the IRIS profile, it must be an up-to-date IRIS profile. That is what the panel will look at when they're assessing your publications. It's the only source. Okay, and it can be Microsoft Word, Excel, or PDF, whatever your poison is. Please ensure that it's up to date and contains your full list of publications, and the publications are not duplicated. Okay. In terms of contribution to school, college, university, and community, this category, applicants are asked to describe contributions they've made to those various headings. Community in this context encompasses wider society, professional organizations, the academic and disciplinary community, language and culture, civic organizations, NGOs, the broader educational domain, in other words, outside the confines of this institution. To demonstrate excellence in this category, applicants will be expected to demonstrate significant contribution and or leadership. Okay. You'll be asked to provide details about individual profile across 4 areas: school, college, university, and then effectively external, whether it be professional, industrial, or in your academic discipline, wider society. Impact and influence, 2 significant case studies demonstrating your contribution are requested here. Okay. Please note, you should always highlight your own role. Don't leave the board in any doubt as to what your own role was in this. You're applying for promotion for yourself, not for the project that you were involved in. And that's something that I say because that is one of those things that goes back to another point that is well documented in the literature around women in particular sometimes being too modest in these things, in highlighting their own achievements, in subsuming their efforts into the team. An application form, and I say this to everyone, male and female alike, is not the place to be modest. It's a place to be realistic, but it's a place not to be modest. Okay? So highlight your own role in this. Don't repeat examples used elsewhere in the application. The key focus of the contribution section is on the following: what was involved, why it was important, your specific role and the impact that you had, and the outcomes. And some sample case studies from the last promotion round will be available to view at that website. Okay? In the final sections of the application form, you're asked for additional information. This is an optional opportunity to provide an additional 500 words of any further information that may be relevant to your application. And you're required to provide names of 3 referees, 1 internal, 2 external. And that is entirely your choice. Okay, that is entirely your choice as to who they are. One of the questions we had in the feed as a result of the consultation in January was, could one of the external referees be an emeritus academic? Yes, it can be. Okay, absolutely fine. So, looking at the weightings then, and focusing initially on senior lecturer contract A. So it's 300 marks, of which 200 as the standard default will be allocated to teaching, 50 to research, and 50 to contribution. However, if you wish, you can take 50 marks out of teaching and put it into either research or contribution, but it must be done as a single block. Okay, you can't take that 50 and say I'll put 10 in here and 40 in there or anything like that. You can take 50 out of teaching and put it into either research, bringing that up to 100, or into contribution, bringing that up to 100. And you must indicate that clearly on the form. If you don't indicate anything at all, that is the default. Okay? Senior lecturer contract type B, or simply senior lecturer as was before the end of 2015, that is the default, 100, 100, 100, and as the last time, you can take 30 marks out of any one of those three categories and put it into any one of the other two categories. Okay? But it must be done in one block again. Okay? No breaking up that 30 and putting in bits here and bits there. Now that has a net effect. For example, that if you took 30 out of teaching and put it into contribution, that contribution would in effect be almost double weighted teaching, because teaching would be down at 70 and contribution would be up at 130. Okay, that's about you making a call about playing to what you see as your strengths. Okay, but it must be done in a single block. And that's just reinforcing the point that you must indicate clearly, otherwise the default applies. The minimum threshold is 40%. That doesn't mean 40 out of 70, by the way, if you downgrade. It means 40% of in that category, which will then be weighted accordingly. Okay? And the weightings, by the way, have no significance whatsoever in anything else that you do. It's for this process alone. Okay? Sorry, did I skip one there? Yeah, okay. So the application material checklist, completed application form is needed, the up-to-date IRIS profile, your teaching portfolio, and the name of 3 referees. That's fairly straightforward, and it's mercifully short as a checklist. The total page limit for supporting documents is 30 pages. This doesn't include the application form. Okay? So that includes your teaching portfolio, which may not exceed 8 pages, plus a maximum of 15 additional pages in appendices, your IRIS profile, and any additional information that you want, such as a short CV, which is optional. You can put that in if you want. Any additional pages will simply not be considered by the board. Okay? So when they get to page 31, they'll simply stop reading. That's the only way to deal with that. And if some of the key points of your application are on pages 31 to 33, well, the board won't have read them. Don't embed links to websites in your application form. Okay? The board will not be looking at that. Okay? About referees, so 3 referees, 1 internal, 2 external, and they'll be asked to comment on your performance in all 3 activities insofar as they're able to. So I mean, you might want to choose wisely there. Okay? A copy of the candidate's application form will be sent to the relevant head of school, who will be asked to complete the head of school form. If a head of school has held that position for only 6 months or less, the applicant may choose to have either the previous head of school or the current head of school to complete the form. That is your call. And there have been a number of changeovers of heads of school in the last few months, so that is entirely your call for people in that situation. And where the candidate is the head of school, the form will be sent to the relevant dean of college for completion. Okay. You must, sorry, I've skipped over one there. So candidates must indicate which head of school in section 3.2 of the application form The current head of school will be the default choice if a candidate fails to indicate a preference. Okay? As I say, the dean stands in if the head of school is an applicant. No score attaches to the head of school's form. It's used by the board to confirm information and evaluations, and that is in line with practice throughout the Republic. There is a head of school form and or reference in every one of the other 6 universities here in the Republic that forms part of the process. The Promotions Board itself will consider all applications for senior lecturer. In summary, the Promotions Board is comprised of 20 members. The President and I were ex officio. We're coordinating the process. We've been involved in the coordinating of the process. We're not involved in the assessing of candidates. And I've also instructed ISS to set up the system so that we don't have access to the applications either. I'm simply not interested in knowing. We've said we're not part of it, and we're not part of it. We're trying to get the process in place, get it right. I will not be seeing in any way, shape, or form what's going on, and I don't want to know. I genuinely do not want to know. There are 2 external advisors to the board who are senior academics from outside the university and whose role is to provide oversight to the process. They'll read all applications. They will be involved in the discussions around scoring, consistency of scoring, etc., etc. They are process oversight, okay? But they will not be scoring in any way that will be factored in to the scoring of candidates. And then the remaining 16 members of the board are internal academic peers from a broad range of disciplines, and they're responsible for assessing all of the applications. All board members have undertaken unconscious bias training and gender equality training. 8 of the members, 4 men and 4 women, are in the arts, business, law side of the house. 8 other members, 4 men and 4 women, are on the science, engineering, medicine, and health side of the house. Okay. The promotional pool. Údarás na Hallscoile has approved a fixed number of 32 promotional places for the 2017 Senior Lecturer Promotions Round. Okay. Comparative HEA data for 7 universities was used to determine the appropriate number of places. The national average and the most recent national comparative data we have is what we used. The national average for the percentage of staff at SL level is 21.5%, in Galway at 16.4%. To bring NUI Galway into line with the sector, 32 promotional places have been approved. Okay, that takes us up to 21.3, but we are actually about 1% ahead in terms of the numbers of professors of the national average. So in terms of overall promoted places, we remain slightly ahead by the time we've concluded this scheme. And there's more in terms of the number. I'll come to that shortly. Places will be allocated between lecture A and B in proportion to the eligible pool, and allocated between arts, business and law and science, engineering, medicine constituencies in proportion to the eligible pool. Okay? In line with the recommendations of the Gender Equality Task Force adopted by Údarás na Hallscoile in May 2016, the university will implement gender quotas for senior lecturer promotion, moving to a flexible cascade model over 2 rounds. A quota of 40% shall be applied in this round of promotions. This quota will be applied across the total number of promotions made. And we are finalising Appendix 7. We've been taking legal advice on it, because what we want to do is make sure that when we apply a quota, or try and be as sure as we possibly can. You're never absolutely 100% sure of anything, but we're trying to be as sure as we can that when we apply the quota, it will be legally defensible. Okay, that we will not find ourselves facing down any other, no, there's no guarantees in any of that, okay? But we're trying to make it as watertight as we possibly can.
Can I ask a very quick question?
Yeah.
40% means either men or women?
No, it only applies to women. Because the issue that is, and that's one of the things we took legal advice on, because the issue to be addressed here is the underrepresentation of women, therefore it only applies to women. Yeah? And 40% of 32, by the way, is 13. Okay? For those of you who haven't yet done the maths. Okay? So that will be applied at the high level. Even though we're breaking it into lecture A, B, and ABL STEM, it applies at the high level, the sum total of the 32 places. Okay?
This will be applied even if total applicants, females are not 40%.
I'll tell you what, I'll take questions at the end. Let me go through the whole thing and you can come back to that at the end, okay? So we are refining and finalizing Appendix 7 of the scheme documentation for details of how it will be applied, okay? The recommendations of the Promotions Board will be ratified by the governing authority. Candidates will be informed, as in the previous round, by me of the decisions of UDRIS. Promotions will take effect from the first of the month following the date of approval of promotions by governing authority, and all candidates will receive a concise feedback report from the Promotions Board. The relevant head of school will meet with unsuccessful candidates to prepare a development plan. Now, there was a footnote in the document that was sent around in January, and one of the feedback pointed out that in that footnote it seemed to suggest that where the dean is standing in for the head of school, the dean will give feedback. That was simply a hangover of the way it was before and a typo, and that's been amended in the documentation. So I am effectively, the registrar is effectively the conduit for the feedback from the board, but the development plan to be put in place afterwards is with the line manager, normally the head of school, or where the applicant is the head of school with the dean. Information sessions, those are the dates. We also have a general session on making a good application for promotion, and that's open to all. And it's by those two academics who are experts in the gender field and who have been consulted about this process. That will be on the 23rd of February, 2:30 to 4 p.m. Do we have the venue for that yet, Joanne? The HR training room. Okay, we might need to move to a bigger venue depending on the interest. Yeah. Okay. So that's a general session open to all. The draft timeline, and this needs to be finalized at UDRIS, is at the meeting of UDRIS at the end of this month. The scheme will open as soon as possible in March, and the closing date is expected to be in May. As I say, a 6 to 8 week opening period. We've looked at what's done in other universities, and it tends to be about 6 weeks or so. And the draft timeline is that then early summer assessment of applications by the SL board. And look, if UDRIS feels this should be shorter, it will be shorter, but realistically it will then be results sent to UDRIS for ratification in September, October, with communication of results to applicants. And then between the communication of results and the end of the year, I would expect those candidates who were unsuccessful to be meeting with their heads of school, and the heads of school to be arranging those meetings and taking the lead on those meetings to put in place development plans. And those who are successful, by the way, and it's something I think I made very clear last time around as well, I would expect heads of school and others to be meeting with them as well to make sure that the success is built on, that it doesn't stop there.